My mother's kindness showed me how to support others with empathy.
Her quiet strength, sacrifices, and unwavering faith in me that keeps me pushing forward every day.
During the turbulence moment of my life, she has showed up with unwavering strength and guided me through it. Her resilience and belief in me is the reason I stand here today.
She stayed strong during difficult times, and it taught me resilience.
My mother shaped my career in the most powerful way. Watching her showed me that a woman can build a strong career and yet nurture a loving home.
Who can create an impact at home, in the workplace, and across the world.
My history teacher was always open to different perspectives, and it taught me the value of listening to others.
One woman who shaped my growth is my teacher. She taught me to believe in myself.
I once worked with a nurse leader who gave me a great deal of autonomy. She always made me feel supported, enabling me to grow fully.
One woman who inspired me is Dr. Roshan Sheikh, who came to meet me in the hospital when I lost hands in accident. Her resilience, never give up spirit, despite losing both her legs, motivated me for hand transplant, inspired me to believe that a setback is just the beginning of a new successful chapter.
One woman who shaped my growth is Shahida from Parkways Hospital Pharmacy. What made a difference was how she modeled being both gentle and firm at the right time in situations. That balance and wisdom has changed the way I approach difficult situations.
My daughter shaped me through her belief in me. Her trust inspired me to show up stronger every day.
My mentor emphasized to me that every challenge or every opportunity has shaped who am I today. Don't panic, set a goal and go for it.
My former manager, Sister Mo, always goes the extra miles and step up for all her patients. She taught me to give our best in everything that we do.
A woman is power, limitless, unstoppable, and unbreakable.
A senior leader trusted in me, and it built my courage to aim high.
A leader who shaped my growth is Anne Rajasekhar. Her leadership journey inspires me how to lead with purpose and confidence.
The woman who shaped my growth is my wife, who is also a nurse leader. As my first mentor, she showed me that leadership is not about authority or position, but about serving others with purpose and humility.
Happy International Women's Day!
Happy International Women's Day!
Thank you so much for your heartfelt reflections. It was really heartwarming to see that video. The mother, the teacher, the sister, the wife, the nurses, people you work with. So they remind us that every journey is deeply personal, and behind every role and title are individuals. Each of us go through moments that shape ourselves through influence, belief, and through somebody who saw something in us before we saw it ourselves, right? So I'm really honored today to be joined by 4 leaders across IHH who brings diverse experiences and perspectives. Each of them carries stories that reflect the many dimensions of leadership, including the observed experiences women often have to navigate quietly and the shared responsibilities that we have in shaping a more inclusive workplace. So I'll start by introducing Yasmin Stubey. She is our Group Chief Sustainability Officer at IHH Healthcare. Yasmin comes with 30 years experience in branding and sustainability. She leads IHH sustainability strategy, strengthening organizational capabilities and driving progress towards its goals in branding and sustainability. In her previous life, Yasmin worked for Hyatt Hospitals, headquarters in Chicago. So she's a very global leader, has masters from Northwestern University, has her own consulting firm, has taught in SMU, and who's been awarded as the top 10 faculty. Her purpose is deeply personal to create a better, healthier world for future generations, inspired by her life experience and her role as a mother of two daughters. Welcome, Yasmin. Next, I'll move on to Ritu Garg, is our Chief Growth and Innovation Officer at Fortis Healthcare India. And Ritu is a very forward healthcare thinker, a healthcare leader. She's known for a strategic vision and commitment to driving growth, digital transformation, and innovation across the organization. Her work shapes the future of healthcare through bold thinking and transformative approaches to care delivery. Welcome, Ritu. Next, we have Yiming. Yiming is our Chief Operating Officer at IHH Healthcare Singapore, and concurrently, Yiming is our Chief Executive Officer at Mount Elizabeth Hospital. He has over 20 years' experience in private and public healthcare, rising through the ranks in operations, commercial, and hospital development roles. Welcome, Yiming. Next to Yiming, we have Dr. Kamal Asman. Kamal is our Country Chief Executive Officer for Malaysia. And Kamal has over 13 years experience in both also private and public healthcare. And we know Kamal to have held multiple leadership roles within the various locations across Malaysia for IHH and have distinguished himself in both operations and governance in healthcare. Thank you, Kamal, and welcome to the panel. Thank you for your time, all of you, and coming here to share your experiences. Let me begin a little bit with a casual, simple question around the table. When you watched the tributes that were shown just now, I'm sure you felt equally touched by, most of the videos that came from our employees. I'd love to invite each of you to share who shaped you as a leader and what did they do that made a difference to you? And maybe we can start with, Dr. Ritu.
Thank you, Sharon. Thank you very much for inviting me to be on the panel. It's a privilege. And yes, very heartwarming video and comments. And I think in personal lives, just like everybody else, I think moms play a significant role, continue to be. And I get very inspired that I can play some of that role for my children too. Uh, on the professional side, I haven't had the opportunity or the privilege to work directly with a woman leader, but I have observed many women leaders on the side and have worked with leaders in general with very different leadership styles. To me, there are 3 or 4 things which stand out as a theme, which has shaped my own personal journey. I think the first one is, and many people talked about it, simply the trust and confidence in the team. I do feel that when leaders put faith and trust in a team, people tend to step up, take more ownership, accountability, and deliver. They just own it up when they know that there is someone who's given them trust. I think also the clarity of thought and decisiveness, and that I think is personally very valuable to me. I do feel that in terms of complexity and when there is ambiguity, and more so in healthcare, the clinicians make that decision every day, hard decisions, and you have to decide on the spot, and it's not black and white. But the ability to do that, and I've seen some of the leaders just do this very beautifully. And I think that has always inspired to me as a very important leadership trait. And the last one, which is a little underrated in my belief, is simply showing up. Show up, to clap, to motivate, to participate in the celebrations. And also when things are tough, and it was tough for many of us during, let's say, a COVID or sometimes media issues, etc. And I had some of the leaders just quietly sitting, backing there in the room. They were just there quietly at the back. And the fact that they were there, just the presence itself in many of those moments made a lot of difference. These are some of the tributes and attributes that have shaped who I have become and hope to become going forward.
Thank you, Dr. Ritu. What about you, Yiming?
Hey, thank you, Sharon. And first of all, let me wish everyone, every lady, especially colleagues here, a very happy International Women's Day. And thank you for having me here. I will take a slightly different slant. I would like to shine the spotlight on an educator. Actually, it's my form teacher in secondary school. So let me give a little bit of context. Why I say that, because I came from a boys' school. So in the old days, when you're boys' school, in your formative years, there are probably 30 of us in the classroom. And what struck me was my form teacher was actually a fresh graduate coming into education industry. And I think she was probably in her late 20s at the point in time. So it didn't cross my mind until very much later that I realized how difficult it must have been for her to be standing in front of a class of rowdy boys at the age, and then being young as a teacher, how she could actually last through the days by being an educator, by also inculcating the values for us as young boys at the point in time. So it's only very much later that I realized what she has actually done for all of us, showing us the characters like resilience, the attributes of not just being there, but also being there to have with a positive impact on everybody in the class. At the same time, to be able to deliver the content of education for us as we grow up. So I shared this story quite a bit, and recently I did share this story when I was invited back to my alma mater to give a speech, and I actually gave credit to her. And it was very heartwarming because I didn't realize how in modern technology, how with social media, what I said was actually sent to her quite quickly. And when I got off the stage, she actually sent me a thank you message because she didn't realize that I actually still remembered her. I think that was easily 30 years later. So I think the part that I want to share is there are ladies who there are individuals who will play that kind of role in our lives that we may not realize at the point in time. And as we
Yeah.
get older and we start getting into our professional life, we realize that in our formative years, some of the characteristics and attributes that we now possess actually started from a very young age. So for that, I'm always grateful to be able to meet her. And I always respect her as someone who has made a difference to my life as I'm growing up and contributing at work today.
Thank you. Thank you, Yimeng. That's a really beautiful story. What about you, Yasmin? What shaped you and who helped, shape the person that you are, and how did they make a difference?
Yeah. Can you go to Kamal first? I need to. I got it.
All right, no problem. Kamal, over to you.
Yasmin, that's not nice. Okay.
And
But
she's
all
got a
right.
frog in the throat.
So Sharon, thanks. But
Yeah.
at the risk of sounding cliche, the woman who shaped my growth most profoundly was my mom, right? And I suspect that, like many people in this call, I only understood her influence long after I had already been shaped by it. Right. That's the thing about mothers, right? They don't always arrive in your life as theories or slogans, right? They arrive as atmosphere, as structure, right? As conscience, right?
Yeah.
As the person who somehow holds the family together with equal parts love, stamina, and an expression that can stop any nonsense midway, right? But what made the difference was not that she loved me. Many people love us. It was the nature of her love, right? Steady, demanding, unadvertised, right? She did not confuse love with indulgence, and she believed that if you are capable of being better, then you should be better. If you have responsibilities, you should carry them properly, right? And if someone is vulnerable, you do not look away, you show up. And she taught me without ever needing to turn to a TED talk that character is what remains when performance falls away. That dignity, that decency matters. That how you treat people, especially when they are dependent on your kindness, is the clearest evidence of who you really are, right? And I think that stayed with me because she herself embodied it. She carried burdens quietly. Right? She gave me more than she ever spoke about. Right? She made sacrifice look normal, which is perhaps one of the great tricks mothers perform on their children. Right? They make something extraordinary look routine, and only later do we realize we are living in the presence of some kind of heroism. But jokes aside, whatever is good in me, whatever conscience I have, whatever capacity I have to care for people, with seriousness rather than convenience, begin with her. Before the titles, before the work, before the world's assessments, I was shaped by her, who taught me that to be human is not merely to achieve, but to endure and to remain decent. So if I have to spend my life trying to be of use to others, I think it is because my mother showed me very early on that life is measured not only by what you build, but what you give.
Thank you so much, Dr. Kamal. A tribute to mothers. Very
Yes,
nice.
Yasmin, it's your turn now.
Yes. I know. Sorry, I had a cough. this is such a loaded question, and I've been reflecting on it. And there's so many women and men, not just leaders, but so many people you come across in your personal and professional life that shape you if you're willing to think about it and reflect and learn. It's about the great leaders you see. What do you like that they're doing that you really want to emulate? And then there's also leaders that you don't want to be like. So those are also learning opportunities on how to be a good leader too. So it's important to make that reflection. So, and also sometimes we always look up, right? Oh, yes, this is, a role model in terms of leadership, because there's so many in the world also, like Jane Goodall, Rosa Parks. So many women throughout the years, especially as women that we are today, that have given us the right to vote, work, equality. There's so many women that came before us. Which is why we are able to be here today. And unfortunately, in certain parts of the world, it still is not the case, right? Girls can't even get education in Afghanistan right now, for example. So, there's so many things we also take for granted, which we should not forget and be grateful for. One of the key things as we're talking about motherhood is definitely my mom taught me to be grateful. So instead of just looking up, we just need to look around more. Even looking at here, right? You're all leaders, and there's something I learn from each one of you or get inspired by. Sharon, I look at you. You talk about 8 months, and I love that you always invite honest feedback and how you were able to put together everything so beautifully in 8 months, right? That's so that's inspiring. I look at Kamal. Kamal is extremely authentic and articulate. I've seen him in many meetings, his CEO meetings. But the one that touches me most always is his social media post. If you don't know, please go read his social media posts. You just talked about your mother. The post you had about your mother when she passed on has remained with me to this day. You have a very authentic, honest voice that can truly make a change with the role that you have. Now, so Ritu, I've seen Ritu in many meetings and forums like this. Very fierce and clear. You were talking about clarity, extremely clear when it comes to clinical excellence, how things need to move forward. She is 1, 2, 3, this is what needs to be done. Let's go get, let's not talk about it, let's go get it done. So again, and Yiming, I love Yiming's optimism. So wherever we go, the can-do attitude, yes, we can, because there's so many people that come and tell you why you can't do things. Yiming will be like, yes, we can do it. So my point is, Sharon, is saying, just look around you, whether it's your leaders, peers, my daughters even, anybody that you come across to, there's something to learn as you're willing to learn and make yourself better. So
Yeah.
I hope just look around you and be more reflective and more observant, and you'll be a better person and a better leader.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you so much, Yasmin. You're amazingly inclusive to everybody, yeah? And that's a bit us as a leadership organization. Now, I was also looking at the question, right? And at the end of the day, when I look at it, name one woman, I felt that through my life, and this can be controversial, but I did share with the group earlier, it was men that actually supported my growth, right? My father, people at work. And I really am grateful. The women were also equally helpful, but I had a lot of sponsorships through my life, which I'm gratefully, really grateful to them throughout my life. So all of you have heard from us in the panel, and now you have some of you answered the question before we started. So maybe we can go to the Zoom results for the Mentimeter. Okay, so I see here that a lot of the responses are equal to what we shared. Our mothers play a big role in how we are shaped as individuals, as leaders. Some have indicated sisters, teachers, very important. sisters, teachers, the wife, ex-boss, right? So there you go. I think we are all a product of the experiences that we have gone through, and I think that those experiences shape us, and it continues to shape us as we grow within IHH as a company. So there you go. Mother, boss, teacher, sister are your biggest audience that have shaped you as individuals. Thank you so much for your responses. And now I'd like to quickly move on to the next segments, right? Now, invisible trade-offs. So it is clear that people who shape us matter. We've seen that, right? And who we are today. But so do the realities as we move forward to navigate along the way. Now, the responsibilities we carry, the choices we make, the priorities we constantly need to weigh in taking decisions, it's quite heavy. Research highlights that many women continue to carry significant caregiving responsibilities at home. And it's sometimes cultural, right? Along with their professional roles, they're also expected to continue being mothers, care for the home, being the daughter, the wife. The workday doesn't end when they log off. There's always a second shift, right? So it is a reality that shapes us, how women navigate our personal lives and move through our careers. I would like to maybe hear from Yasmin. Yasmin, all of us make choices between careers and personal commitments. Looking back, how did you navigate those choices and decided what mattered most at different points of your life?
Okay, thanks for the question. I think it's an extremely important question, and there is one thing I will want every, especially woman, to get out of, and I'll say that in the end. So, we women are raised on great expectations. Great expectations, not Charles Dickens's novel, great expectations. Expectations from family, expectations from culture, expectations from the image of womanhood that was handed to you before you were even old enough to question it. I mean, I think about even when we are even little girls, right? We are fed with stories of Cinderella, Sleeping Beauty, Snow White, and we are fed that as a woman, success means finding your prince. This is, like when I was little, these are the stories. Thank God, there's all Frozen and etc. right now. So the definition has changed. But that is what I was fed as I was growing up in Istanbul, in Turkey. That is quite also a patriarchal culture too. So the great expectations, be the perfect mother, the present daughter, the inspiring leader, the devoted wife, the loyal friend. There just is a lot of expectations. But nobody really talks about what's on the other side of these expectations. With that comes great guilt feeling. And what makes it harder is, these expectations never keep changing. They keep moving. They don't stop. So, for example, what mattered most when my daughters were small is very different to what matters most now when they are teenagers, two girl teenagers. They're trying to find their own voices. Sometimes every day feels like there's a little war going on at home somehow. And what my parents need, living so far from my parents when they need me, especially with health-related issues, again, is very different to what they needed 5 years ago versus what they need from me today. Even with my team, what they need now is different from what they needed last month or last year. So the targets keep shifting, and we just keep, trying to be the best version of ourselves with all these identities we have. So we call it juggling, but juggling implies that all balls are equal and that none can drop. Now, it can drop. Let it drop and do not feel guilty about it, period. It's extremely important for us to, okay, be the perfect this, etc. Something has to give in, because otherwise what happens is we will get so exhausted and to burn out that we will not be able to be great on anything when our health will be in jeopardy. I think that's extremely important for us as women to turn back into ourselves and be good to ourselves first rather than trying to be perfect versions of all these identities that we have. So here is the question that really changed how I live. At the end of it, when it's all about prioritization of the juggling that I was talking about, what I do is I ask the same question to myself. In 10 years, which decision will be harder to live with? That's the question I ask myself. That I didn't get the approval on a board paper or that I didn't show up to my daughter's recital. So there is basically two things that I recommend to everyone, the woman especially. You just have to have this conscious prioritization anchored in the boundaries that you set for yourself. My health and the health of my loved ones comes first, always, full stop. And so when I ask a decision, I ask myself just this one question. Will this matter in 10 years? And if the answer is no, let it go and without apology. Just know which role needs you the most at that moment, that day. And let some of the balls just drop on purpose. And two, and this is probably the most important decision I've ever made, is the people I trust when I know I cannot do it all. Now, my husband is Swedish Austrian, and Sweden is so known for equality and all that. And yes, he definitely is doing his part on like helping us, with the house chores or raising my daughters. And he also knows in terms of prioritization, he tends to sometimes comes last in my prioritization. And it's just how we communicate to make sure that he also still always feels valued, no matter if I haven't prioritized him at the time. And secondly, my team. My team is not just professionally capable, but dependable enough that when my absence, when I need to be absent, it's never a crisis. I didn't build a team so that I could do more. I built a team so that when life needs me somewhere else, I can rely on them fully. So without being on my phone or anything, because there are these situations that happens, and I have a very trusting team, and I let them know honestly that this is what's happening. I need you guys to step up, and they always do, which I'm very grateful for. So I'm very picky when it comes to picking the people I hire. And I hire people who should make me dispensable. And that is never weakness. That is the whole point of leadership too. So to every woman listening right now, the guilt you may have woken up with this morning, just drop the guilt and start choosing deliberately, consciously, and unapologetically. Because in 10 years, you will not remember that important meeting, but you will remember how you chose to show up for your life and for the people you love. So drop the guilt. That's my last.
Thank you, Yasmin. Very nice advice. Moving on to Dr. Kamal, how do you view work-life balances and how do you do it in your busy schedules?
I think after listening to Yasmin, I feel like packing and going home. But
Oh, please, let's finish this.
But I think work-life balance, it means different things to different people, right, Sharon? Because
Yeah.
people are different, seasons of life are different, and not all work asks the same thing from us, right? So for me, balance is not 50-50 split. I have never found that especially realistic. And frankly, I'm very suspicious of people who speak it as though they can do this on a perfect Excel sheet, right? So sometimes balance is 50-50, sometimes it's 70-30. Sometimes one part of your life needs you more than the other. And I think the real question is not whether the proportions are equal, but whether they are sustainable, honest, and still leave room for you to remain you, right? It also depends on whether you love what you do, lah. If your work is meaningful to you, then the relationship between work life is not always adversarial, right? Work is not always the thief of life. Sometimes it is one of the ways life finds expression, right? For me, for instance, right? So because I care deeply what I do, and there are seasons when work take up most spaces, perhaps 70-30, and I do not resent that. But loving your work does not exempt you from needing rest, perspective, and parts of yourself that are not reducible to a job title. So for me, balance is less about counting hours and more about protecting enough of myself to stay sane and grounded. I write, right, which helps me process and think about the world. And I play
Yeah.
with Lego, which I realize is either charming or eccentric depending on who's judging. But
Mm.
there is something very restorative about making things with your hands, building something small and orderly in a world that often feels quite chaotic, right?
Yep.
So that's how I do it. If work is beginning to consume not just my time but my inner life, then I know something needs correcting. Right? Balance to me, it's not static.
Mm.
It's an ongoing act of adjustment with little self-awareness, a little discipline, and for me, when necessary, a box of Lego.
Oh, very nice. Thank you. So, Yasmin, Dr. Kamal, I think what I took away was let the guilt go. And where balance is concerned, protect your best self and what brings the best to yourself. So, thank you so much for that. Moving on. So, as you're listening, right, audience, if you have questions for our panel, please feel free to put them in the Q&A chat. We'll take a few of them at the end of the panel. Now, balancing responsibilities is one part of the journey, right? The another part is how we show up, how we find our voice, how we are heard, and how we create space for others to be heard too, and calling things out. So, Erin Meyer worked on cross-cultural leadership, and she reminds us that culture shapes how people communicate, how they relate to authority, and how comfortable they feel speaking up. In some cultures, including parts of Asia where we are, there's stronger traditions of hierarchy and respect for authority. It's not that the people don't have views or ideas, but norms can influence how and when those views are expressed. We keep them a lot to ourselves because of fear, huh? So let's a bit explore this area, right? With this panel. Dr. Ritu, I'd like to invite you, given that you're located in India. Now, where you're often one of the few women in boardrooms, how do you establish your voice and your presence where you are and based on your experience?
Yeah, thank you, Sharon. And yes, there have been many instances, they continue to be, when you are, one of the few women in the boardroom. Early in my career, when I would walk in, I would, silently scan the room. And frankly, I still do that. And yes, it would register that, I hope the balance shifts and it's more equal. I do hope it would happen over time. Well, I think in my journey, what I've learned is that when the thing that works the most is that when you walk into the room, you have to really believe that you're not there because of your gender. You're not there because you're a representation or a tick box. You're there because there is something meaningful that you can add. And that's not just you who believe it, but also someone else in the organization. And that's why you've got seat on the table. And once you've got that seat on the table, I do also believe that it does come with a little bit of responsibility and accountability. Um, it's easier said than done. There have been moments when you're there and you haven't said what you wanted to say. You walked out, and once you reflect, um, the theme is, Sharon, what you just spoke about a little bit. It's always the fear. It's never that you don't know, or there's that you're not prepared enough. It's usually the fear of being judged, the fear of that somebody will not like the idea, the fear that it will probably get drowned. And guess what? The thing is that it's fine, because not every idea needs to be applauded. Not every comment needs to be appreciated, because it's a perspective. And sometimes, especially in boardrooms, there is no really right and wrong. And it would happen with everybody. If there are 100 ideas or 100 lines that are spoken, there are times when some will get noticed or acknowledged and some won't. And once that clarity is there, I think it's easier, because then when you go in, you're just going there with a belief. And in my view, it is an accountability for that seat, because we owe it to ourselves. We also owe it to all the women, everybody, to say that when you've got a seat, you've got to say your mind.
Yeah.
Preparation helps. If if you've prepared for the meeting, it's always obviously easier. And I think over time credibility builds in, because it's
Yeah.
not about how much did you say, it's also not about how loud you are in the boardroom.
Yeah.
I think it's not about being loud or being repetitive or saying too much. But if you know it, if you know the subject, you've got the confidence to say it because you believe that what you're saying matters. It matters to the organization today. It will really have a value for the decision that we take. And once
Yeah.
you've said it, and if it's not taken in, it's fine. You
Yeah.
still go out of the room not feeling dejected, but
Yeah.
also saying that, oh, at least I said it, and yes, I also heard it. Because there's also an equal, you need to be open minded to listen to a counter view. And when you agree on something or a framework, when you walk out of the room, that's what you're fully aligned to. And you've said it, you've heard it. There are times when it'll be heard, there'll be times when it won't be. But I think we owe it to ourselves. So whenever you go in a boardroom, scan the room. It doesn't matter. Just go with the belief, and reject the fear. So, Yasmin, I'll take that line from you. Drop the guilt. I would say drop the fear. Drop the fear.
Nice. Yeah. Yeah. Thank you so much, Dr. Ritu. I don't know, maybe I'll just pan a bit over to Yasmin, to get a bit of your perspective, Yasmin. Sometimes, as a woman leader, you've seen many things in your career, and sometimes you recognize that these are uncomfortable things that women do not talk about. Maybe a quick perspective from you. Yeah.
I think, and in my career, certain things, when I was in hospitality, especially, and as an unmarried woman back then, there would be, I'm being quite honest, right? There would be a certain things men leaders would do that would make me feel uncomfortable. I mean, it wasn't like, direct sexual harassment. I didn't necessarily go through anything like that, but there were many times when I was in uncomfortable situations. And when I reflect on it now, I feel bad because when you normalize it, then it keeps happening. So I should have spoken up, or at least not necessarily going to HR and saying, oh, this happened. Not necessarily that, but we also need to give the benefit of the doubt that if we just take that particular leader to a room and say, hey, I just want you to know you did this, and it made me feel uncomfortable, perhaps they will at least give them the chance to reflect on it. And because they may have come from a culture of all that being normalized as well, for them to give them the chance to change so that it doesn't happen to the other woman that just, laugh it off or, think it was, a joke or whatever it may be. So this I'm saying in terms of, what may have happened to me. But basically, if anyone ever encounters anything which is not the right thing to do, I'm not only talking about like these types of things, but just someone is not going with the value system, let's say we have within the company, speak up. Don't be scared to speak up for what you believe is right. And this actually goes for me, to separately, even whether it's in the boardrooms. I think the leaders that have been in, meetings, boardroom, etc., know how I speak my mind. I choose my battles, but on things that I have very strong conviction about, I will speak up, even nobody else does. I will say the harder things for us to think about or ask the questions that are harder to ask. I owe it to me. I owe it to the organization. I owe it to who else may be coming after me as well. So speak up, pick your battles, and don't shy away from speaking your own truth because you think it may be, oh, this is going to make me unlikable or whatever it may be. So
Yeah.
hopefully it helps.
Yeah. Well, thanks so much, Yasmin. I think just building on Dr. Ritu and Yasmin, your point, dropping the fear, protecting your pride and sanity and speaking up, I would like to maybe turn a bit to Yiming, right? Building on that, how do you encourage people to speak up so that they and we can benefit from a wider range of perspectives and sometimes even behavioral, right? To put things right.
Yeah, thanks, Sharon. I was actually listening intently to Ritu and Yasmin. I think, on the contrary, as someone who has been in healthcare in 20 years, most of the time, I find that I'm usually the only guy in the boardroom. Because in healthcare, as you know, there are so many ladies, nurses, so on and so forth. So that's the kind of position that I have been thriving in the last 20 years. And it also taught me a lot of lessons. All right, because being a male in a female-dominated industry to that effect, I think to give someone a safe space to speak up, we first need to acknowledge a couple of things. One is everyone is authentic. The sense of safety is different for everyone. And more importantly, is the person in front of you is probably the sum total of their own life experience and what they are going through. So no two persons technically are the same. So we have to recognize that we need to create different spaces for different people, different time for different conversations. And I think as leaders, it is important for us to first recognize that whether it is a female or a male colleague, just be mindful that everyone comes to you with their own internal baggage, with their own considerations, and they're all unique in their own. So in that regard, I think we need to then build upon what are the options and opportunities we can have effective conversations for someone to raise their concerns, even to have a proper conversations.
Yeah.
Most of us, we have big engagement sessions like town halls, where we have senior leaders sitting there. We have colleagues who are less shy, who may be more articulative. They will raise their hands like a session today. They'll start asking questions because some of the questions may be representative of a majority or some of the folks in the audience, for example. And then from that, you give a more of a conversation opportunity to explain, express how certain policies and decisions are actually being done. If you bring down to the next level, and usually at a more departmental level, where certain individuals are all coming together because of certain joint concerns, and it's very unique to the department, have that conversation at the department level, be open, all right, and ensure that even if the supervisors are there or not there, this conversation is also something that they can rely on to have their points expressed across to someone senior like myself. And last but not least, we need to find opportunities to have conversations with individuals as and when necessary. I think it's very important because sometimes, and in fact, most of the time, individuals, especially in the Asian context, they may be more shy or they may not want to air their concerns publicly. So we need to create that space, formally or informally, for that kind of exchange to take place so that you can have a meaningful understanding of the insights and where they're coming from. Having said that, once we internalize some of these conversations that we have, then bring it back to a formal platform and try to address some of this so that for the individuals who come to you at a private basis or individual basis will feel that some of the concerns are addressed, whether it is according to what they had anticipated or not. It is still something that is important for someone to recognize that the senior leader has actually taken note, give it due thought, even engage other leaders for resolution, and at least close the loop on that matter. So I will approach this from this perspective to recognize that everyone is different. We need to find the time and the space for everyone, and to acknowledge that we really need to close the loop whenever a concern is coming towards us. And with that, we can then be able to look at everyone and look at everyone in a way that they can be respected and be unique in their own ways.
Yeah. Oh, thank you so much, Yiming. It's very, very sensible, what you're recommending. And I like what you said that, I always go by be kind to the person at any point of time in the day because you don't know what the individual's gone through or been through or is going to go through, right? So it's a bit that human interaction. And I like the fact that you use situations to bring the matter to table and take the right actions at the end of it as a leader. So situational leadership, leadership with empathy. Thanks, Yiming. So psychological safety isn't something that we can assume that the individual has. Sometimes as individuals, as leaders, as peers, we do need to help each other. It takes a lot of awareness, intention, and we also need to actively invite others with different voices into the conversations as we go along in our career life. So thank you very much for that feedback around the voice we need to bring to the table and psychological safety. I want to move on a little bit to how we use influence to leave others in this whole theme of give to get, right? Inclusion isn't only about policies or programs, it is reflected in everyday leadership decisions. How we include others, no? Who we encourage, who we trust, who we help to move forward. So Yasmin talked about how she is very selective in picking her team, right? And this speaks to another important leadership role that we play beyond our path. So I want to kind of put a question to Dr. Kamal. Now, McKinsey 2025 report shows that women are less likely than men to have sponsors, especially at the entry level where the gap is largest. Huh? So in your view, Dr. Kamal, how can leaders take a more deliberate action to create opportunities for women to grow and progress in their career?
Thanks, Sharon. I've been reflecting on this actually, and it's not an easy question. But I think the first thing as leaders we need to do is to start from honesty, right? And as Yiming has correctly pointed out, even in many of my own meetings and boardrooms, there are in fact more women than men. I think that is important to acknowledge because it would be too easy and perhaps lazy to speak as though nothing has changed. Things have changed. In many sectors, certainly in healthcare, women are not on the margins of professional life. They are central to it. They lead teams, they shape institutions. So yes, representation matters. And in some spaces, it is already visible. But I think the deeper question for leaders is this. When we say women are present, present in what way? Present in numbers, certainly. But are they equally present in influence, in sponsorship, in succession pipelines, in the roles that stretch careers and shape institutions? Because presence alone is not the same as power. And visibility is not always the same as voice, right? And this is where leadership has to become deliberate. I do think that we should acknowledge that men and women are not identical, and neither are people within those categories even. Right? So even within the same gender, personalities differ, temperaments differ, ambitions differ, family situations differ.
Yeah.
Some people seek spotlight, others do not. Some are naturally assertive, others are quieter, but no less capable. So creating opportunities for women does not mean forcing everyone into the same mold or pretending difference does not exist. Well, it means that we need to recognize the difference without allowing it to become an excuse for unequal opportunity, right? So I think to me that is the philosophical heart of the matter. Equality is not about flattening human difference. It's about ensuring that difference does not become an obstacle or a destination, right?
Yeah.
Right. So a leader therefore cannot simply say, well, the women are already in the room, so the job is done. That is very premature form of self-congratulatory. Right? Congratulations. So the real task is to ask harder questions. Who get stretch assignments? Who gets the turnaround portfolio? Right? Who gets trusted with P&L, responsibility with strategy, with crisis, with visibility? Who gets spoken about as future CEO, future chair, future head of division? Because I've also seen many of us, as many of us have, right, that women are reliable, capable, they are steady, they're emotionally intelligent, and they are able to hold complexity, right, which is excellent, except that sometimes institutions become so comfortable relying on women to keep the system functioning that they do not move quickly enough to give them the authority they have already earned, right? So what should leaders do? So I think for me as a leader, we have to move from goodwill to design, right? Support for women cannot remain a sentiment. It has to become structure. That means looking carefully at the pipeline, asking where women are at each level, where they stall and why. If women are abundant in the middle and thinner at the top, I don't think that's a coincidence. I think it's a pattern, and any pattern should be examined. So second, I think leaders need to sponsor, not just mentor. Mentorship is helpful, but sponsorship changes careers. Sponsorship means using your influence to put a capable woman forward for a major role, a difficult assignment, on a visible platform. It means saying she is ready and being willing to back that judgment, right? And very often talent does not fail, it simply waits too long for someone with authority to recognize it decisively. Right? So, and then next will be leaders need humility to examine their own instincts. Who do they instinctively trust? Who do they interrupt? Who do they challenge more harshly? Who do they imagine as leadership material before the evidence has even fully appeared, right? So institutions often speak the language of merit while quietly rewarding familiarity. So we need to ask ourselves and do a bit of reflection as leaders, right? So yes, I am glad to acknowledge that many in my rooms, there are more women than men, right? And I think it is a good thing, and it reflects real progress. But progress should not make us complacent. It should make us more responsible, because once women are in the room, the question changes. It is no longer about entry, it's about growth, it's about influence, it's about of authorship and also power. And I suppose at the end, leadership is not tested by whether we are willing to praise women. Most modern organizations have become quite fluent in praise. And so leadership, I think, is tested by whether we are willing to trust women, invest in them, and advance them.
Fantastic. Thanks, Dr. Kamal. I've taken down a lot of notes, and I love a lot of your dichotomies that you've called out. I'd like to call upon Yasmin, right? So what are some small everyday actions as a leader or a manager that, you feel and you think could build confidence and help individual progress? Because Kamal also talks a bit about it's not just representation, it's also showing up.
Yeah. I think very simple. One, praise their contributions publicly. It's scientifically proven that acts of recognition triggers oxytocin, which is both to the giver and to the receiver, which will create loyalty too. So praise contributions publicly, and so that they also understand and can empathize, with you as a leader. Involve them in whether it's a decision that you need to make as a leader or the strategy that you need to create. You just ask the question, so how would you approach it? You already have said in your mind, and then that may also give you other things that you may not have thought about as a leader as well. So that's good for both sides, basically. I'm very keen on normalizing I don't know, So when you don't know, just say it. And trust me, with the sustainability role I have, with sustainability regulations changing every day almost, there's so much to do. It's so new to so many people. I say it. I don't know. Let's figure it out together. And and we learn every day as a team on how to be most productive, effective, and get the job done too. I think extremely important, just like praising, is celebrating milestones together. That's when we launch our sustainability report, for example, we always go out for a big celebration because it's a lot of hard work, and it's a well-deserved celebration, basically. And lastly, I think this is something I don't do enough of. It's something I need to do more of, because we are so busy all the time. We forget to do the think and reflection time. So purposefully now, and that can also be training. Purposefully now, I want to put both in my and my team's calendar, think, reflection, and or training time, so that we can have that breathing room to reflect, to be better.
Fantastic. Thanks, Yasmin. So, I like the fact that if you don't know, say, I don't know, rate is good, because then we can do something about it, right? So thank you very much. Moving now a little bit to gender perspectives. Now, we are in a frame of International Women's Day. It feels a bit like we're celebrating women, but, both genders bring a lot to the table, without which, we cannot be where we are today. So growth as an organization, as a community, as a human race, is rarely solo, right? It's shaped by the environment we build together, how we collaborate, how we support one another, and how we value our strengths and differences. So I want to kind of ask Yiming, right? You also said that you alluded to the fact that leadership today benefits from diverse perspectives and approaches. What are qualities of women leaders that you admire, and why?
Okay, interesting question. maybe I'll take a different slant to this. I wouldn't say it's quality. I would say probably from the perspective of life experiences. I think in the business of healthcare, I think we can all agree it's a business of empathy, compassion, and care for patient. So it requires a very different kind of attributes and quality to be able to carry through the patient care journey, making a patient in distress and in pain feel better about themselves when they're with us. So it's not a very straightforward professional landscape that we're working within. So I would like to give credit and again shining the spotlight on unique experiences that the female colleagues would have, which the male colleagues wouldn't have. And that's, for example, being a mother. So I think Kamal talked about second shift, being outside work and earlier on. I think the kind of experience they have outside work as a mother, for example. And when I say mother, I'm not talking about mother that is a fix in time. There are mothers who have been 20 years being a mother. There are mothers who are just 3 years being a mother. They bring different things to the table when it comes to the work environment. But the long and short of it is to be able to recognize the ability to bring the emotional connection to the patient and to be able to recognize that as a strength and attribute that is important quality in the healthcare industry, and then see how we can deploy and use that so that we can then transfer that kind of compassion and environment into our patient care process. So I would really say we will look at women from a perspective that none of the men can claim. We can actually substitute or claim that we have the experience, and that is really the unique experience as a mother for most of the ladies that I work with. They do bring to the table a very different kind of professionalism that most of the men can only admire, try to emulate, all right, but can never really uniquely replace that. So that's how I'll take it.
Fantastic. Thanks, Yiming. So just leveraging off the natural tendencies of the gender, right? It's what you're kind of bringing to the table, huh? And the benefits of, sometimes women are quite nurturing, they're naturally motherly, so that natural self, bringing it to the table. Thank you so much. Dr. Ritu, building on that, from your perspective, and again, in the environment you're in, what strengths that you see in your male colleagues that you have come to value it most, and how they have shaped the way you collaborate and take decisions together?
Yeah. So Sharon, just like you, I also feel that, I've been very blessed with, many men who have been sponsors and, who've been very collaborative culturally, etc. But I think one of the qualities that I feel that men have is, a certain ability to remain unburdened, unburdened, unemotional, oh, I can see Kamal saying, oh, what are you saying? Okay. Unburdened in the sense that, sometimes when things go wrong, men sometimes can be more at ease. There are times when women tend to take it a little bit more personally, or the fact that there's a point to prove. When women reach a certain levels, many times they feel that they have to drive harder. They have a point to prove, and they want to be a perfectionist, and they feel that if the outcome isn't as it was supposed to be, and we are in healthcare, we're in business, there are highs, there are lows. So sometimes men can do that with a little more ease versus women. I would, and it comes back probably, if I really stretch it to what we heard Yasmin say earlier about guilt. So maybe it just ties back to that, that you're always on the edge to say, oh, is it right? You would see a lot more women running, from here to there, and then wanting to rush back home. Whereas sometimes I do see men, and all for right reasons, right? Just take it a little easy, to unburden it and say, fine, it's okay, and move on, let's go ahead, what's next. I think it's something that I admire, and I would probably, as women, we should take that a little bit easy. But in the end, I think it is about complementing each other. The teams, the culture, everything in the end is about complementing each other. Leadership is not, it cannot be cast into male, female kind of leadership. It's a spectrum. room. There are men who can be very empathetic. They would show up. Similarly, there is a little bit of stereotyping over the years that women can't be tough, that women can't be decision oriented, women can't be, there's only a softer side of it. But we have seen many women, take decisions during tough times, drive results, drive outcomes to exactly the same team. And similarly, men, who have a lot more softness, of course, they can't have that dimension of, the maternal instinct. So in the end, I think for the organizations to grow, I think it's the culture of collaboration and being open-minded that makes all the difference. As women, we have to be open, just as the expectation that men need to recognize the differences that women bring to the table. I think as women, we also have to appreciate that it's not all that easy for men too. And I do appreciate that, men also have sometimes tend to take more responsibilities of home, not financials and others, in their own mind, which may not be fully true, but in their own mind, right? Just as we take more responsibility for nurturing, men take that more responsibility financial. So both have certain unique perspectives, and deliverables to do that from the cultural context. I think the acknowledgement of that difference and the fact that both bring significantly different perspectives and value systems and abilities, capabilities on the table is critical, and that's where magic happens. And I've been very fortunate to be part of those teams during my career, and it's that right mix and balance. That's when the organizations and the teams thrive.
Fantastic. I completely recognize a lot of what you say, Dr. Ritu, and thanks for bringing it to the table along with you, Yiming. Thank you to all panelists for such thoughtful reflections. So far, we have covered personal journeys, shared responsibilities, and different ways we can support one another through growth, right? And I'm seeing right now some questions that are coming through. So I thought maybe this is a moment that we can take some of the questions that are coming through for the panel to respond to. I think one question I see, just give me a minute. Here we are. Resonates around, the question is, we often see women naturally volunteering or being tapped on for non-promotable tasks, like taking meeting minutes or managing team morale. So how do we shift this culture so that it is shared equally? I suppose it comes from a bit of that motherly, making sure the house is in order and housekeep and all that. So maybe I'll just open this up to the panel. Do you see this? Is this prevalent where you are? And how do we shift this culture so that, some of this is equally shared?
Sharon, I want to come in here with my personal experience. This was probably, I think 10, 12 years ago. I was probably a junior manager at that time. And I was invited by, one of the president level person for a meeting. It was a meeting of 5, 6 people, and I was invited because I was managing the CEO office. And on the email, he said that, oh, we are having this meeting and, we would need to take notes and, it'll be nice if you join. And when I read that email, I really, felt exactly what somebody has written, that, oh, is it my role only to write notes? And I'm very glad that day that I actually went to his room and I said, sir, do you expect me to just take notes, or do I have, if I have something to add, is it okay for me to add? He was quite taken aback by the direct, feedback, to say that, it's just not about taking notes. And yeah, of course, I value your opinion, etc. But I said, but you just said that my role is only to take notes. I think that incident has stayed with me, and it's exactly what, and you're saying volunteering, but I'm saying that, there are times when your expectation is only to take notes. And if you feel that you have something to contribute to, you should.
Yeah. Thanks, Dr. Ritu. Any other views on this? I have a perspective. I feel note-taking is the most powerful job. You can change the narrative, actually. But that's my view.
No, you
Yeah.
can. But the question is that, that should be voluntary. If someone
Yeah.
invites you in a meeting when you're not part of the team just to take notes,
Yeah.
um, you know,
Yeah. Very good. Any other perspectives or views to this question? Maybe Yiming or Dr. Kamal?
Maybe I'll just jump in. I was just thinking back. Actually, I've taken quite a lot of minutes in my whole career. So I kind of disagree with this statement because I think at the end of the day, it's got to do with job functions. It's got to do with how a leader even decides to maybe roster minute taking. I think in recent times, it's very difficult to say that a person's job is really just to do note taking. I think that's also not productive. Also, that's also not very effective. And I think that is also a very singular mindset with regards to job perspective. I think what we can do is, I think as any leaders is if any one of us are remotely or subconsciously guilty of doing this, the natural way to do this is really to put it on a roster, on a job function basis. I think let's be clear, be very transparent, and when we do enough of this, we'll naturally realize that whether male or female, all right, you will definitely get your fair share of time to do the note taking. Unless you're in a situation like Kamal and myself, right, where 90% or 99% of colleagues are female, right? No matter how you do the roster, maybe over 12 months, probably just one guy gets out of 12, and then the other 11 are ladies. But that's, again, I mean, jokes aside, that simply also means the nature of the work and not because of gender equality or things along that line. I think that's the perspective I would take.
Yeah. Well, thanks, Yiming.
likelihood with AI, the note taking is going away.
Maybe. Yeah. Let's hope so. Okay, good. So maybe the next question that has come up, what helped you most in stepping into leadership skills, sponsorship, or mindset? Maybe Yasmin, would you like to take this?
Okay. I think it definitely starts with mindset. I personally did not say, oh, yes, I'm going to be, this leader. In my life, actually, what I wanted to do changed so much, from being a ballerina to owning an advertising agency. So, my aspirations changed a lot. Having my own shoe brand, I had all these, different things. And then I got into healthcare as a result of losing my nephew to cancer, which is, I'm always driven with a strong purpose as a result of that. So then it becomes a mindset of not necessarily, oh, I'm going to be a leader, I'm going to be a leader, but the mindset of doing your best and continuing to reflect to figure out improving the skills comes with it too, right? So, for example, I'm very grateful that my previous bosses, Calvin and Joe at the time, gave me sustainability role, right? So, which the department did not exist within the company, but they thought that, yes, she has the right bones, mindset, and heart to be able to do this job. So they gave me the opportunity. And of course, I took it, and I had to build the skill set that came with it. Then I did the Oxford course, really understanding more and more and constantly, continuously keep improving myself. So as I said, it's a very fast evolving world. So I have to continue to do that. So it's a mindset plus a skill set. And, as I said, if you are if you are the best version of yourself with whatever your job is, even if you're not a leader, you will get there because people will recognize your hard work contributions and the value you add to the company.
Yeah. Thanks, Yasmin. I think that question can be answered by everybody in the panel, but I think let's move on to another question within, because we've got quite a few coming in now. So, in the panel's view, what have you observed are the hardest barriers for women to break in? Maybe Dr. Kamal, since you've not said anything to the questions, what are your views?
You see, Sharon, all right, you picked on me not because I'm male or because I've not said any, but you picked on me because I've not said anything so far, right? So sometimes with regards to note taking, it's not so much whether or not you're a woman, it's not gender specific role, I would say. And in most of my meetings that are attended by women generally, even the woman will pick another woman to take note taking for them. They are generally more detailed, I suppose. I am very particular when it comes to note taking, right? And I've had male, females taking notes for me. So I don't think gender is right. To this question, Sharon, that you have kindly passed to me since I've not said anything, right? I think the hardest barrier here, apart from organization, the construct of our organization that we are working on, if any, to dismantle, it is also mindset. The mindset that I'm not trusted enough, or I am not getting this job because I'm not a man, right? Or I am being, looked at because I've not clocked in enough work. My work-life balance skewed to more towards life instead of work. I think mindset is extremely important because I have promoted people who spend more time outside work than within, right? Because they yield more, they yield better results and consistent result across, right? So I think the biggest barrier that one needs to overcome in this day and age, apart from the organizational barrier that we are looking into, if there's any, is the mindset.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I completely agree with you. Sometimes we put barriers in front of ourselves as individuals, right? Be you male or female, and we need to overcome that. And I really like what Ritu said earlier around when you enter the room, it's all about the purpose of what you want to deliver in that environment. What's the content that you bring to the table? That's what we're looking for. Thank you very much, Dr. Kamal. I've got a trigger from the organizing team maybe to actually move on. We want to move on a little bit to an engagement session by the audience. We have 300 over people on the line, and I am so excited that you're all here to listen and gain from this, hopefully. So we are going to open, I think you can see the Mentimeter QR code here. So please scan that, and there is a question there that asks you, share one action you will personally take to support someone else's growth in IHH, right? So if you can go to Mentimeter, click the QR code and answer this question. And while you do that, maybe I'll just go around the table with the panel to ask one more question. What would you like to see IHH employees do to help each other grow? Because it's quite an important. So how do you give to get, right? So maybe I can start, with Dr. Ritu.
Give more opportunity. I think empower people. It's when you give opportunity, you get the teams to grow. When the teams grow, the organizations grow. I think the biggest barrier is always the right opportunity. You're always waiting for someone to spot the potential and give a platform and gives the opportunity. So if all of us can give people more opportunity within our teams, and sometimes we get a little hung up on the experience versus the potential, right? So the movement of people from one function to another, the person hasn't done this, so should we take chances as a team? If we can just take chances on our own people, I think that could be really very powerful, and compounding can happen significantly for the organization to grow.
Fantastic. Thanks, Ritu. What about you, Yiming?
Yeah, for me, probably just three comments. One is recognize differences. I think that's very important in any workplace, especially a workplace with so many different types of professionals working together for patient care. Second is really to support one another, all right? Because we are a team-based kind of industry, it is very important for everyone to correlate, understand, and align. And last but not least, for the leaders, is to be able to recognize and sponsor potential. All right. All right. So that is kind of intrinsically linked to capabilities and competencies, but I would like to use the word potential in the generic sense because it should always be potential that drives our interest to sponsor someone and then genuinely push forward the agenda and make sure the person succeed at the end of the day.
Yeah, fantastic. Thank you so much. What about you, Dr. Kamal?
So echoing on Yiming, the first is the need to identify potential. When you see someone with potential, then you map out their skill sets. No one is perfect. You've got strengths, you've got areas that you need to work on. But if you're able to work on the strength and profile them properly, right, and identify the right sponsor for them, I think that would be great.
Fantastic. Thank you. And I can see the word art sort of giving you also big, bold words, right? Oh, Yasmin, what about you? What do you
I have
think?
just one advice. Recommendation is get out of the office in a social environment, because I find that whether it's with my peers or with my team, the most honest and reflective conversations for growth happens over, and it doesn't always have to be alcohol, obviously, right? Over dinner tables, over, the
Yeah.
the engagement, what do you call those? The ones that, we have $50 to do with the team bonding stuff. Just get out of the office in a different environment, socialize together, and great things come out of that. That's for you to grow individually, as a team, as a company. So
Yeah.
that's my single most important recommendation.
Yeah. So, in the learning world, we have this 70-20-10, where 70% you learn literally on the job, right? In doing things. 20% is what you called out peer learning from each other. So when you do those social events, you basically unconsciously you're learning from each other, and you're progressing what you can do. Back in the farm, 10% is you attend classes, and that's just 10% of how you're going to learn. So if you come back, thank you very much for your views, panel. Coming back to the work art, you'll see in big words, share one action you will personally take to support someone else's growth in IHH. Praise, encouragement, empowerment, trust are big words. Mentorship, sponsorship, being supportive, offer opportunities, I think was brought up both by Yiming and Dr. Kamal. Give feedback, fantastic. I think you've said it as a panel. You also see this in the wider organization. I think we are completely aligned in terms of how we can give to get. So with that, I want to thank our panelists for your honesty and your generosity and your candidness, and putting on the table, tributes to mom, tributes to sisters, tributes to colleagues. I really thank you. Today's stories remind us that leadership is not only defined by our visible successes. Growth happens through resilience, support, courage when someone chooses to believe in us, to encourage us, to open the doors we may not have opened ourselves. And today remind us that each of us can be the person for someone else, right? Not just you receiving, you're also giving. So not through grand gestures, I think just everyday small actions, calling for a lunch, calling for a meeting, getting together, small moments, we're showing up for each other. Thank you so much for being part of this conversation and continuing it beyond today. Please share with your friends. Before you log off, I ask that you take a few minutes to share your feedback to help us shape future conversations. The survey link is in the chat on your screen. I want to thank the panel again, and have a wonderful day ahead of you, and a happy International Women's Month. Take care.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.
You're welcome. Bye-bye.
Thank you for the participants for staying also.